Thank you. Would you please take your seats? Thank you. Item number 3, Houses of the Oireachtas Commission Amendment number 2 Bill 2012, second stage. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. On that question, a division has been challenged. Tellers Thaw, Deputies Paul, Joe and Emma Stagg. Tellers Neil, Deputies Mary Lou MacDonald and Catherine Murphy. Thank you. Thaw 83, Neil 42. The bill is read the second time. Thank you. Now move on to committee stage. Committee stage. Section 1 is Section 1 stand part of the bill. And Section 2 stand part of the bill. Section 3, Amendment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 are out of order. That Section 3 stand part of the bill. Great. Section 4, Amendment 7, out of order. So I put the question that Section 4 stand part of the bill. That Section 5 stand part of the bill. Title, that this be the title to the bill, an act to amend the Houses of the Oireachtas Commission Act 2003 and to provide for related matters. Is that agreed? Agreed. Not agreed? Oh, sorry. Right. The bill reported without amendments. We now propose to proceed to report stage in accordance with the order of the day. Since there are no amendments on report, we proceed to fifth stage in accordance with the order of the Dáil today. So the fifth stage, I ask the Minister to move that the bill do now pass. Move. Is that agreed? Not agreed. I put the question. The Teachtaí atá héamh the Thuras Gine Abadís Tá. Teachtaí atá na Cuine Abadís Níl. Siadam Gwen and Kestrich. Vote. Item number 3, House of the Oireachtas Commission, Amendment number 2 bill. Thank you. Fifth stage. The question is that the bill do now pass, and on that question, a division has been challenged. Tellers Hall Deputies Paul Keoghan, Emmett Stagg. Tellers Neil Deputies Angus O'Snuddick and Catherine Murphy. Toy 84, Neil 42. The bill is passed. Yes.
I call for a vote by means other than electronic.
All right.
I kept that.
Please ring the bells. Item number 3, Houses with your Oireachtas Commission, Amendment number 2 Bill, 5th stage. The question is that the bill do now pass, and on that question a division has been challenged. Tellers Thaw deputies Paul, Joe and Emmett Stagg. Tellers Neil deputies Angus O'Snuddy and Catherine Murphy. Thaw 85, Neil 42. The bill is passed. A message will be sent to the Senate acquainting it accordingly. Thank you, Minister. I'm just waiting for the Minister to return in respect of the Civil Defence Bill. I think he has to use the conveniences. Bill 2012, Shannon, report stage. Amendment number 1 in the name of Deputy McLaughlin. This arises out of committee proceedings. 1 and 2 are related and will be discussed together. Deputy McLaughlin.
Graham August, County Quarter. In relation to Amendment 1, Minister, as you know from the committee stage, this particular amendment was ruled out of order at that stage because it would have been at a cost to the Exchequer. We've now amended it. Basically, that's none of the representatives of the various organisations listed would be actually paid for those services. Indeed, they'd be representing those organisations in partnership. The reason why we've put the amendment, Minister, just to reiterate, is that while overall, in terms of the bill, we don't have any particular objection to the existing board being basically removed or closed down and put back under the Department of Defence as it was previously. We don't have any particular objection to that. But there are some concerns, and the first one would be within the existing board there's a range of expertise, and I suppose I'll just name them out for the record. The County and City Managers Association, obviously representing the county councils, the local authorities throughout the state who pretty much administer civil defence and ensure that there are the necessary personnel on the ground, fully trained and able to respond to an emergency. Obviously, the Radiological Protection Institute of Ireland, again, emergency related. The EPA, the representatives of the civil defence officers themselves to have a voice at the table, the Defence Forces and the Garda Síochána. And I think it's key that within the new arrangements in the Department of Defence that there is a dedicated structure that retains all of that expertise and analyses the overall civil defence plan to ensure that that it's fit for purpose. So that's the purpose of that, and again, with no cost. The second one, to speak to the second amendment that I have in there, again, that deals with the issue of resources, and one of the concerns in relation to the second amendment is that within the existing criteria, you have every local authority has to put together a plan that they submit to the Civil Defence Board, and they outline their own priorities, their own strategies within that county. But it's based on a set of criteria that a funding allocation is then made to the local authority. The difficulty now is that there doesn't appear to be within the legislation, within the bill, any clear criteria for the Minister and how he deploys resources. And the little concern I would have there is that, and I appreciate that you make it clear in the bill, there's no huge, I think it's only €70,000, it's not a huge amount of money being saved in what's happening here. So within that statement you're saying that there's no cut to the actual budget, but the concern would be in the future. And the difficulty in this whole area is that obviously there's a lot of cutbacks to local authorities, there's huge changes for local authorities and their budgets and how they operate. But it's really important that on an ongoing basis that resources are there for training to freshen up, obviously to deal with new techniques, new equipment, new health and safety processes that are in place. So we just want to ensure that all of the strengths that are there, all of us are immensely proud of the Civil Defence, the work they do. In Donegal, as I said, Minister, before, a couple of years ago in the winter from late 2010 into early 2011, we had, as was the case in the rest of the country, freezing conditions for a sustained period of 2 months. I was the chairperson of the Roads and Transport Committee in Donegal County Council at the time, and I know that, like with the farming organisations, it really was all shoulders to the wheel. Of course, the Defence Forces were called out in places that were inaccessible. It was a real team effort. It was a real remarkable effort, and the Civil Defence played a real key role in all of that. So we've seen. I'm sure you could give me as many stories back again and many more. You're longer in politics than I am. So. The issue here is just ensuring that we continue to resource and value the professionalism and dedication of these men and women on the ground, and that we have the range of skills to make sure we continue as we are. And apart from that, we don't have any difficulties with the principle. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Cairn
Deputy. Well, Cairn, I'll be very brief. I suppose, like Deputy McLaughlin, I just want to acknowledge the high standing of the Civil Defence organisation and its personnel across the country and the wonderful work that they do. I suppose our amendment here is simply trying to ensure that the external contacts that have been used to the benefit of the Civil Defence will continue in the new scenario. Thank you. Minister.
Thank you very much, Cairn. Look, I thank both deputies for their contribution to date, and I will just deal with amendment number 1 from Deputy McLaughlin. And I do not propose to accept this amendment, Deputy, and it is not intended to put the forum on a statutory basis, as I do not want to abolish one body and simply creating another, and thereby diluting the government policy of reducing the number of state boards and agencies. And that's something that we propose here in the programme for government, that reduce the number of state boards and like that. And this is just about dilution of the board. But I can assure you that the Civil Defence will still operate in the very same manner and means that it has previously. And I have indicated all along, even before the bill was published, that it is my intention, after the dissolution of the board, to establish a forum in order to be able to harness the collective focus of the key stakeholders in the wider field of emergency planning for the benefit of its civil defence, and for the branch of my department which would be charged with the future management and development of the organisation at national level. It is also intended that the Civil Defence Forum will be a non-statutory consultative body which will be as flexible as possible in its operations and will be able to consult widely as required. And the majority of the parties listed on the proposed amendment will be representative on the forum. There will be further scope for the remainder, and indeed other statutory and non-statutory bodies to be included where matters of particular interest are being discussed, and therefore I am strongly of the view that in order for the forum to retain the maximum level of flexibility in its operations, that it will be hampered by having specific provisions relating to its composition, etc., enshrined in the legislation. I hope you understand where I'm coming from on that. And the purpose of the forum will be to provide advice as required and to provide a structure of for stakeholders to interact with the civil defence branch within the department. And the forum is intended to operate at a strategic level on the defence matters, and wider developments in the area of emergency response and other issues that might impact on the civil defence. And membership of the forum will comprise of nominated representative bodies such as the Department of Environment, Community and Local Government, and Garda Síochána, the HSE, City and County Managers Association, Civil Defence Officers Association, and a representative from the Civil Defence volunteer body. And I think that enshrines that everyone that is involved in the civil defence movement to represent the views of everybody that will be on the forum. I hope you can accept and acknowledge the reasons why I'm not accepting your amendment on this occasion. And just on amendment number 2 in the name of Deputy Sean O'Farrell, and it is neither proposed to accept this amendment. Section 12 of the bill, Deputy, allows for the Minister to determine the format and content of a civil defence plan submitted by a local authority for consideration. And nothing in this section or in the bill precludes the Minister, if he or she considers it necessary, from consulting with internal bodies or agencies both before and after plans are submitted by the local authorities. And we all understand the importance of the plans of the civil. I know you have outlined that as well. And the civil defence plan submitted by the local authority will have already been approved by the relevant city and county manager, and the civil defence officer will have been part of the management team at the local level that prepared the plan. A civil defence plan will be unique to each individual authority. The provisions of this bill, which are similar to those in the 2002 Act, will allow for further consultation with authorities on their plans if considered necessary. And just to outline that one of the purposes of the bill for the civil defence branch of the department is to get back to devoting more resources to dealing with the real business of the civil defence, which is the emergency preparedness and the development and implementation of training programmes for volunteers, so that the organisation can deliver effective support to the frontline emergency services and continue with its community support activities. As a small standalone state body, the board was constrained by the same level of governance that related obligations as would be required of a much larger organisation. As part of a government department, the burden will be considerably reduced, thereby allowing more time for strengthening the network of the relationships with stakeholders such as local authorities that the civil defence at national level has developed over the years, and also with other key players in the wider area of emergency planning. And I know both deputies have outlined the importance of the civil defence, and I can assure you that the department will operate in the same vigour as the board did to make sure that the civil defence runs at a very smooth operation, and to highlight the importance of the civil defence in every town, city and village right across Ireland.
Thank you. Deputy O'Farrell.
I accept the Minister's good faith, obviously, in this whole thing, but I am concerned that, for example, in the establishment of the forum, that it's been decided that the Radiological Protection Institute of Ireland is not included. Certainly it's not included in the list you read to us there. And I suppose the point that we were making, and I think Deputy McLaughlin was making the same point, that the civil defence has benefited from the external inputs that have come from the variety of agencies that were previously involved in the board. And I just wonder, why drop the Radiological Protection Institute? Why not have it as part of the forum? And you can accept, I presume as well, Minister, that if in putting your proposals together you could drop the Radiological Protection Institute, we'd be a little bit concerned that the Minister, were there not a greater onus on him, might not consult as widely in respect of the civil defence plans that are so important on a county-by-county basis.
Deputy McLaughlin, do you wish to?
Covered what I was going to ask.
Minister?
The body that Deputy refers to will be represented by the Department of Environment, Community and Local Government. And that doesn't say that if the forum requires further expertise or advice or something like that, any such bodies can be invited in to give that advice on such occasions if required. And I understand the importance of where you're coming from, but I think we have to have a board that is workable and that is there to do the real work for the civil defence. And I believe that the Department of Environment, Community and Local Government will represent the views of that organisation. And as I say, if required, of course, the forum will invite any such bodies and for expertise or advice.
Are the amendments being pressed? Is the Amendment 1 being pressed?
One, yeah.
Yep. Proposal is that the amendment be made, and on that proposal, I now put the question that amendment number 1 be made. The Teachtaí atá heb na Tarishkin Abdis Tá, Teachtaí atá na Kin Abdis Níl. Sheeran Gwyl and Kesrich. The amendment is defeated. Amendment number 2 in the name of Deputy O'Farrell. Is that amendment being pressed?
Yes.
Yeah. The Teachtaí atá heb na Tarishkin Abdis Tá. The Teachtaí atá na Kin Abdis Níl. Sheila Gwyl and Ketch Búcha. The amendment is defeated. I think I might have made a mistake myself about the result of the last one. I'm sure those involved will recognise the fact that it's... So, amendment number 3 in the name of Deputy McLaughlin arises out of committee proceedings. Deputy McLaughlin.
I spoke to, sorry, I spoke to both when I spoke, but just to reiterate again, it's around the issue of resources, and I would like some reassurance. If you look now, just to repeat the point again, in the existing framework, the Civil Defence Board have a set of criteria. So when they receive a plan from the local authority, then the resources are allocated, and there doesn't appear to be that criteria now in place for the Minister and Department. So it's just there's a little concern I have that that may give sort of a freedom in the years to come to maybe wind down the resources for that. So I just would like some reassurance, and particularly the Civil Defence members themselves, that this new arrangement will mean they continue to have the necessary resources for training in local authorities also. That's all it is.
Minister.
Thank you very much, Ken Corley. And first of all, I do not accept, propose to accept this amendment, but I can assure you that for as long as I'm a Minister of State in the Department of Defence, insofar as national finances can allow us, that the civil defence will be funded in the same manner it has been to date. And I understand the importance of exactly where you're coming from on that. And you do understand that the funding from the local authorities is primarily a matter for the Department of the Environment, Community and Local Government. However, to encourage local authorities to meet their obligations in relation to civil defence, my department provides a grant aid to each authority amounting to 70% of approved expenditure each year on civil defence activities within their areas. In addition, other supports such as centralised training, policy advice and other where major items of equipment and specialised equipment for authorities are well funded by 100% by my department. And as I said, that the level of funding for the civil defence at 5.58 million per annum in a time when there was major cuts in other areas remained to the civil defence, and is one of my own priorities in fighting my corner is to make sure that the funding is retained going forward.
The amendment being pressed. Amendment number 3 in the name of Deputy McLaughlin, that the amendment be made in the Teachtaí atá heb na Tarishkin Abdis Tá, the Teachtaí atá na Kin Abdis Níl, Sheila Gwyl Búcha and Kesht. The amendment is defeated. Amendment number 4 in the name of Deputy O'Farrell. Deputy.
Well, again, briefly, this is a matter that we had a brief discussion at committee on, and I suppose it's around the fact that each local authority will keep a register of the membership of civil defence within its jurisdiction. The information kept on the register is basic information relating to the member name, address, date of birth, and so on. And it provides as well that the county manager or his nominee, or the minister or his nominee, may have access to that register. Now, it seems to me that in a situation where the civil defence plan and the force is at least in part funded by the local authority through the estimates process, which must be voted through by the elected members, that it would be appropriate that at least the Cathaoirleach or the mayor of the local authority involved would have the opportunity in the rare event that it should be necessary to inspect that register. And I think it's a simple, fairly straightforward amendment. I think it also goes to a point of principle, and that is that the elected members at local authority level should not be prevented from having all the information that might be required from time to time to allow them fulfil their particular remit. And I think, in fact, legislation of any form that effectively excludes local elected representatives is not good legislation. And you're committed, I know, Minister, to local government reform and to empowering local government. Well, I mean, don't then bring forward legislation that actually excludes members of local authorities from full participation. And I think a case can be fairly clearly made here, Ceann Comhairle, and I'll stop at that from time to time, local members of the local authority may have information that could be of use to the local authority and to the civil defence. And I think it would be useful that they would be in a position, via their cathaoirleach or mayor, to check the register and to verify that the information contained in that register is in accordance with the facts as they know it. Thank you.
Minister. Thank you very much, Deputy. As I stated previously at the committee, the requirement to develop a centralised register of civil defence volunteer members was introduced in the Civil Defence Act 2002. And a web-based electronic register is now in use by all local authorities, and prior to that there was no effective centralised register apart from an amalgamation of local authority manual records. The register contains personal and confidential details on the civil defence volunteers and captures information other than the specified in the Act, such as health and training and re-qualification records. As this information is of confidential nature, it must be protected in accordance with the data protection guidelines. What is proposed in the bill is largely a continuation of what is contained in the 2002 Act. Civil Defence is registered with the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner as a data controller under Data Protection Acts of 1988 and 2003. The Data Protection Acts place the responsibility for the duty of care owned to personal data on data controller. A data controller must have a sound, clear and legitimate purpose for collecting personal data and must ensure that the data is securely retained. To maintain registration, Civil Defence must complete an annual registration form outlining a description of the data, the purpose of which the data is held, and is the permitted disclosees of data. In the case of civil defence, the stated purpose of retention of data is the provision of voluntary support service to the primary emergency services and the local authority, our local community. The listed disclosees, those who can access the data, are limited to civil defence headquarters personnel and designated local authority employees who have legitimate need to access the register in the course of their work. The guidance note for the data controllers on purpose limitation and retention issued by the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner is very clear, and I quote, "Data controllers may obtain personal data from a data subject may do not for one or more specific lawful and clearly stated purposes. It is unlawful to collect information about people routinely and discriminately. A data controller must have a sound, clear and legitimate purpose for collecting personal data. An individual has a right to question the purpose of which you hold his or her data, and you must be able to identify that purpose. The information in the register is inputted at local authority level by the Civil Defence Officer. Individual members can be given access to their own records on the register on any occasion. The CDO may also access the records for their own local authority area, and selected Civil Defence headquarters staff in the course of their work can access all records on the register through a password-protected system. Since its introduction, no issues have arisen with regard to the operation of the volunteer register and training database, and it is working very well in its current format. And I conclude, as I emphasised at committee stage again, that we are dealing with, what we're dealing with here are volunteers and not local authority employees. The protection of and privacy of civil defence volunteers is paramount to potential volunteers could be reluctant to join the civil defence if they felt that their personal information was being made more widely accessible. Volunteers have confidence in the confidentiality of the register as structured. That persons accessing their information have a sound legitimate purpose for doing so, and this is a key to its successful operation. And just to conclude, Ken Corlett, the previous company that I worked with had access to a huge database. And I recall just before I left that company, the Commissioner saying that that database could not be shared with anybody. As the database, I presume, in your own constituency, you would have members, their personal information, and I know you're not talking about going to the general public, but you guard that to a very small number of people who you share that personal information to. And I think that's the way it should be kept, so therefore I won't be accepting your amendment.
With the greatest of respect